so naughty that I know that you want to, like, watch a man that has a big dick make love to another woman over you, and that I, as a man, is like giving my concept of a man to fight for the right to fight over you. As a woman that likes to watch guys fight over her pussy, I know it's crazy, but I do want to fight over your pussy. I love your pussy. And I know it's naughty, and I would fight any man over the right to fight for your pussy to show that I am tougher than any man else in Kelowna that wants to fight over you. Kind of sexy, right? I really would want to fight any guy over the right to fight to make love to you. It's naughty, I know. And I know that there's guys that might have bigger dicks than mine, but my dick is pretty big. And I will definitely put my penis on the line, the length on the line, the thickness on the line, over fighting over the right to prove that I'm tougher than any of the guys that wants to fight over your pussy. And I know we are all so naughty. We are all so naughty.
Welcome back to the Howard Stern of Pro Wrestling, Monte The Pharaoh. Only seen here out of Monty's room and the Pharaoh's room. You know, dude, I miss that studio, bro.
I was thinking that the other day. I guess you're reading my mind. Those were some wonderful days there at that studio. That was good stuff.
That to have as I adjust my hat as I put it on wrong.
Hey,
I'm very excited
as long as we're not doing like a show, like a cosplaying the corpse, we're good.
What does that mean?
Cosplaying the corpse? You haven't seen that show?
No, what is that?
Oh, dude, man.
Oh, is that what you're crazy?
Yeah, cosplaying the corpse.
Cosplaying the corpse. I didn't know.
And the corpse. Yeah.
Let's welcome our guest, man. It's been a long time. Actually, I did a podcast. You were working that night, and our man here he does a weekly podcast. We'll ask him about him. But, you know, I hadn't seen him in such a long time, and it just brought back great memories. We got a lot to talk about, man. Since last time, you know, we were all fuckered up. So one of our messiest interviews of all time. Let's welcome the guy who
I don't remember.
Doesn't just play guitar, but he breaks it over people's head. Man, Mountain Rock, Mad Max. What's up, buddy? What's new?
So good to be back with the craziest motherfuckers that I guess I could actually say that I wasn't with at the time, because you motherfuckers were so goddamn out there. I don't think Monty, I don't think you were quite as far removed as the Pharaoh was, but he was on some kind of a pharaonic fucking arc to the universe at that time. So
what you caught that night was my indifference to the wrestling world. It was glorious. I don't remember.
Well, you know, I believe me when I say this, I can completely understand your indifference to the wrestling world.
Yo, Max, so Jimmy, when Jimmy drinks, and I can attest he doesn't drink that often. And to be fair to Jimmy, I outweigh him by like 100 pounds, I think, or close to, right? So, yeah. But that night, I thought to myself, well, fuck, Jimmy, I've never seen Jimmy this drunk. I got to tell you, Max,
I topped it.
We did an ECW Christmas reunion. He topped it. He's on air drooling on the table.
Not drooling, but very close though, Mike.
Yeah,
That's almost accurate. Sandman pulls me over in the parking lot. Now Sandman's got a ride. He's the Sandman. They're gonna drive his drunk ass home. But he comes up to me and he's like, Pharaoh, I really think you should think this over about getting in the car and driving yourself. And I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, the Sandman's giving me life advice. I'm like, I've really hit a fucking penthouse of fucking patheticness when it comes to drinking. I got to stop.
Yeah,
I
you
saw like
better listen to
47
that
lanes, but
pathetic.
the Gopher was fine. I didn't hit him. That was
Slobbering, vomit. They're all kind of mixed
No,
into the
no, none
same.
of those things happened, oddly enough. I guess that's the Irish in me. And I did wait until I was coherent, though, obviously. Come on, you can't be stupid about it. Let's be serious. But the Sandman giving me life advice, yeah, way to go, Mike. It was your idea, Mike. Oh, you know what we'll do? We'll get together with Sandman and Todd and Francine, and we'll all drink vodka. Oh, that's a great idea, Mike.
on air, but on air
Yeah.
what makes it the best, right?
Yeah,
Sounds like
it
a
got a
recipe
kabillion
for
views,
destruction.
so.
So, Jimmy, before we get with Max, I got to say a couple of things about him first, right? So, we were planning to have Max on, and then I was shooting for last Thursday, and he was doing another show, and I was like, "Yeah, Max, pull this is the test to this guy." And Max, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, we don't know each other, but we've known each other for a bit, and you are certainly one of the better guys that we've ever run into. And to attest to this, Jimmy, I said to him, "Listen, dude, just look. No one's watching that other show. Just do a Lex Luger, man. Like, just leave it be and just no
What are
show
you,
them." And
Bischoff?
Max flat out says to me, he's like, "I can't do that to anybody," and that just attests to the guy, man. He's a good guy, and it's like that's all I want to say, Max.
Don't
Right?
tell anybody that, because every time that somebody says that or figures that shit out, I end up in real trouble. And so please
Oh, they
just
find out that
portray.
you're a decent. They find out you're a decent human being, and then you
Yeah,
get
well,
played on.
that's fucked up. Don't fucking
Yeah,
tell people I'm a decent human being. Jesus,
right.
you'll
I
kill
get
my
it.
I mean, Max, is that what really happens, right? They find out you're a nice guy and then they try to fuck you over because they think you're a soft touch.
I God, I would hate to presume why anybody does what they do to other people, but when I've said before in my life to people, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. But the truth of the matter is, you really get to see who people are by, there's a great old saying, and I live by it. You can give people, all kinds of presents and gifts and shower them with whatever you want to, and they'll forget you in a fucking heartbeat.
Oh
But
yeah.
there's one thing that when you know how to make somebody feel good, they'll never forget you. And I believe that. And to me, that's what life's all about. The fucking people I want to surround myself with in my life are the ones that make me feel good and I enjoy doing this thing with. Or fuck it, I'm not going to do it. That's the great thing about it. We talked a little bit about the last guy I was with. As soon as that I realized what's really going on, well, then it's like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not doing that. That's not who I am. That completely resists everything about the character that I am and that I want to be. So
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak for Mike, but I think unfortunately because what we do and the show that we do and the fact that we want to get the real side of people, I think because we've had hundreds of people come through our show, you're going to get some assholes. And that kind
yeah,
of will jade your outlook on stuff. So even the people that we clash with when it comes to me, I do think about some of the good things about them, but in the end, it is what it is. I guess it's just my indifference to the wrestling business. See how we came full circle there, Rock?
yeah. But what's amazing is the wrestling business is the perfect uh, recital hall for those people.
Mm.
You
Yes.
know, if your goal is to be a complete and utter fucking asshole, and that's surprisingly, and inevitably, the people that end up being the biggest assholes are the baby faces,
Right.
and that's the most amazing. The most amazing thing about the wrestling business is usually the guys that are those folks are the ones who in public play the squeaky clean, you know, I'm the hero kind of guy. And, you know, that's what I love. That's what I loved about the wrestling business is I got to hide um, who I really am and be the Alice Cooper character I always wanted to be, the Gene Simmons, the David Bowie, the, you know, whatever. That's what I always wanted to be in my character. And the wrestling business was a perfect place for me to be that guy, or so I thought.
So Max, let me ask you this, right? So again, one of the nicer guys, you're in the wrestling business. I want to veer towards women in wrestling first. Again, it's different now, right? The world has evolved, but back when you were there,
Yeah.
did you feel bad for the women back then and the way they were treated and just all the nonsense that, you know, we have Shelly Martinez on the channel. I don't know if you know Shelly at all.
I don't.
She was a bit after your time, but again, even back then, the abuse I think women had to take, especially. See, I always look at it this way, Max, and I'm giving you a long-winded question, so I
No,
apologize.
brother, I'm here for you.
Wrestling is a microcosm. Jimmy and I always say it's a microcosm of the real world, but it's amplified because the people could be bigger dicks than they can in real life and get away with it. And they can mistreat people in a certain way and still get away with it. And it wasn't patrolled enough where, you know, when, you know, you were taking advantage of a woman or you were doing drugs or you were beating up people, whatever the case is,
And
it was like a protected
And the
environment.
ladies were a sideshow in those days too, right, Mikey?
Yeah. So, I mean, Max, when you were in there, did you see women being abused or was it not, you didn't see that kind of shit going on?
You know, it's funny. That's a great question, man. And I'm one of the few guys who's going to answer that in an honest way because I'm not afraid of who I was and what I did in the wrestling business. When I broke into the wrestling business, they still used the word rats to describe women heavily. You know, that the world was full of arena rats, and these were women who, you know, they were your typical chicks that showed up at the back door and took care of everybody, you know, in every way imaginable. And it's funny because the truth of the matter is, without those beautiful, wonderful women who looked after us on the road back then, who were the ones who fed us, who, you know, a lot of times took us to shows, put us up in their homes, you know, all because they wanted to be the traditional, you know, like the backstage girls for rock and roll or whatever.
And groupie.
They had already cast themselves in a role backstage as a rat, and a rat is at the time was a very despicable word because it's so amazing how the boys would treat arena rats. Is they treated them exactly the way the term made them sound, looked like they were lesser, horrible human beings, yet they didn't hesitate taking complete and utter advantage of them, and at the same time building this huge fence around their own stable of rats so that none of the other boys could come in and take those rats, even if they were married, had kids, and whatever. I've actually compared this to the Goombas that the mafia guys all had, right? You know, had an apartment for a girl that they all took care of that wasn't their wife, and everybody, and I mean everybody, had a rat in the beginning when I broke into the business. and women in wrestling was so removed. And quite honestly, it was handled by one person in the wrestling business. And we all know who she was. And everybody knew how she was the one that manipulated all of the women wrestlers in the wrestling business. And that was the Fabulous Moolah. She was the one that, that got the girls into the business. And she's the one, she was not, she had a lot of the sort of, forgive me, the Jeffrey Epstein mentality going on, because she was the one that brought, now there, I know this is going to offend a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some of the girls who ended up working for her, who may have, nice things to say about her. I don't know that part of the business, so I am talking out of my ass when it comes to that. But everybody knows how the Fabulous Moolah was the one that if you were a woman and you wanted to be a wrestler, you had to go through her. And everyone knew it. And they were really treated no differently by Moolah than the arena rats were treated. They were all, it's funny. There was this pervasive attitude through the business that, when you had a girl, when you build a fence, it's amazing, even the terminology that surrounded all of our rats. I wrote a song actually about rats that I will eventually release. I just haven't released it yet, but I wrote the lyrics, I wrote the music. I just haven't ever recorded it yet.
Rock,
but it
Rock,
summarizes the way, how important, God, I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't know how I would have done it without him. I mean, those women were so giving and so kind, and so often, I am one of them that did the treating like shit. I was never physically or mentally abusive. Every woman that I was ever with like that, I was good to and I loved. But by the same token, I watched a lot of guys really abuse women. And that was just a part of the business that I don't know what it's like now, because I'm not backstage. But I'll tell you one thing, to me, it is a beautiful thing to see women in wrestling in that side of it, because obviously they bring something to the table, because they are an integral part of the business today. So whether we like it or don't like it, somebody's buying their swag, or they wouldn't be there.
Rock, with the allegations, we know how Moolah has basically been very politely erased by the WWE in recent, with the allegations of
really,
sex
I didn't know
trafficking.
that. Tell me about that.
Well, okay. Well, apparently he watches less wrestling than we do, Mike.
Oh,
That's saying something.
when I left the business, I fucking left the business.
Yeah, you got the hell out. Okay, understood.
No,
well, Moolah's been canceled pretty much. There were allegations of even sex trafficking with the way she was running.
Oh my God! I had no idea, and I bring up the Jeffrey Epstein thing.
So, were there any? Did you hear any murmurs or rumors, or what was your personal feeling on that sort of allegation?
That's why. I mean, honestly, Pharaoh, why do you think I said that? I said it because I remember Red Bastien, when Red Bastien broke me the fucking business, telling me about the Fabulous Moolah, and if there was a woman, in fact, his wife was a woman wrestler. Her name was Penny, I think. I can't remember his wife's name. Forgive me, but she absolutely was controlled by Moolah. Moolah had her hand, forgive the expression, in every woman wrestler's life at the time. Absolutely.
You don't watch any wrestling at all since you got away from it?
I do not.
Wow.
Yeah,
is it do you hate wrestling or something? Or I mean, it's forgive me, but I'm just trying to figure out how you got to hit the off switch, because I've been able to do that, but then I wind up coming back.
I keep talking about my movie, and it is going to come out, and you're going to see, the great thing about the movie that I made is when it does finally come out, you're going to understand my frustration with the wrestling business in a way that's part of the reason I've let it go to somebody else to take care of it, because I didn't have the courage or the strength to do it by myself. I just didn't. And so, but I was hurt so badly by the wrestling business in so many ways. People that I loved and trusted and went down the road with. I can tell you story after story that you'd go, okay, all right, okay, enough, Max. That it would make sense to you why I left the wrestling business. But when I left the wrestling business, I still have it to this day. I have incredible PTSD from what happened to me in the wrestling business.
Well, Max, yeah. that's what I want to bring you into. I want to kind of go back from that. So throughout history, right, we've seen in wrestling the stories, obviously the most recent, about Vince McMahon and those issues, right? Again, yep. Unfounded, never been arrested. Again, so we have to still hold the fact that the person's innocent until proven guilty, right? But throughout history, we've seen so many different things, like a Rita Charlton who claims that she was raped by Vince McMahon, and on and on and on. But I go back to you on the moral fiber standard. Here you are living this life, and like you said, you didn't mistreat anybody to the best of your ability, physically. You watch stuff go on. Is that what you mean about PTSD? Like when you sit back now in your life and you're out of this, do you look and go, why didn't I stop shit? Like, why didn't I stand up for these people? That type of thing.
Whew, man. Yeah. Hey, fucking, let's go for the fucking surface questions right out of the gate. Hey,
let's go for it, big guy. That's it. This is no show. Well, tell us
Rock,
about.
And Rock, you've had a lot of time. You retired a long time ago. You've had a lot of time to put your story into coherent, concise thoughts. I mean, what is your take on what Mike is asking you?
I'm one of these guys, because first of all, I've seen what the wrestling business does to people that have the audacity to stand up to them. Most of them are dead. Look at China. Look at Chris Kanyon. These guys, when they actually had the balls to stand up to the wrestling business, they were devoured. And regardless of and the wrestling business constantly protects itself by demeaning the character of the people that they made money off of. If they don't like you and they want to get rid of you, then the next stage is publicly assassinating you, which I'm prepared for. But the great thing about me is I have nothing to take. So publicly assassinate me all you want. There's no question you're going to ask me that I'm not going to answer the truth about. But what they did, what Triple H did to China, and I would say this right to Paul's face if he was sitting right here, what they did to China, they have direct responsibility for her. And the same goes for Chris Kanyon. Man, if you've devoted, and that's what happened to me, I devoted my life to working my ass off on the guitar, to learning how to be a musical engineer, to be a musical producer, to understand the wrestling business behind the scenes and bring something to the table that no one else had brought. And when I did that, and it wasn't to the wrestling business's liking, which I'll give you the classic example is my movie. So here I have this movie that is the reason I was blackballed from the wrestling business, is because I had the audacity to shoot a film behind the scenes that everybody participated in lovingly participated in because they knew that what I was doing, the crowd would love. Because part of the reason I shot this movie was because when I saw Road Rules for the first time, and I decided that, man, what's really interesting about the wrestling business is the shit that happens behind the curtain. That to me was always the part I thought was the most interesting. Now, circa fucking today, and here we are with WWF doing what now? Now they're doing Unreal. And who's at the helm? Triple H. And Triple H, in my movie, shot a couple of the most provocative scenes in that movie because he saw what I was doing and he knew what I was doing would get over if they would allow it. The problem is I was 30 fucking years way too soon in trying to bring that to the table, even though Vince gave me permission to do it. Because had Vince not given me permission to carry a camera behind the scenes on a World Wrestling Federation tour, do you think, does anybody who knows a fucking thing about the wrestling business think that I would have shot one single frame of video behind the scenes without Vince McMahon's blessing?
No, not at all. But I want to go back a little bit, though,
Okay.
because you're hitting on so many major subjects. So playing devil's advocate, Triple H living with China, loves her, runs into Stephanie. The heart wants what the heart wants. Time to leave, right? How, in your mind, is he the cause of the downfall of China?
Oh, the shit he said on Howard Stern publicly about China, the things that he went out and, I mean, he crucified her publicly. And then they all turned their back on her. And, you know, in a time when all you got to do is watch the China documentary. She begged them to listen to her, to give her another chance, to, you know, and the wrestling business, if they love you and they want you around, they don't have a fucking problem with giving you a chance. They've done it for countless individuals who had no business coming back into the business because they were really ugly, dark human beings. And yet the wrestling business, if they want you in that position, they have no problem, which is exactly why, I mean, I haven't, in all the time, I mean, here, okay, I don't want to blow my own horn because it's horrible. I hate people that sit around and do that. But
no, bro, we're hanging out. Blow your own horn. Give the facts to the people, the fans out there, the facts.
Okay, so here's a guy who was a 3-time All-American amateur wrestler, national champion on a national championship team. I have a degree in television and film from Iowa State University. I started making movies when I was 16 years old. I taught myself how to be a music producer. I wrote my own soundtrack for the movie that's coming out. I shot a film in camera on the road in the WWF. And I heard Bruce Pritchard actually say this. Yeah, Max he thought he was going to have a career behind the camera. Well, that's unusual because, gosh, there are no other wrestlers that have careers behind the camera in the wrestling business. Man, I was fucking tore up. By the time I got to the point where they wanted to use me physically, man, I had double inguinal hernia surgery. I lost both my knees. I lost my fucking shoulder. You know, I was at a point where I could have easily retired. I always wanted to be like the Paul Schaefer of the wrestling business. I wanted to be the guy that, you know, we'd have big, like before big events, I'd fucking play the national anthem and we'd do things that really got over and were fun for me to do and have my place within the World Wrestling Federation. And instead, I got cold-shouldered and blackballed, and I never received a single phone call from anybody in the wrestling business. And I'll tell you the reason why, because I know what they're going to do. As soon as they hear this, they're going to go, because they did it to Chris Kanyon publicly. He did it on Howard Stern, again, Triple H. Well, and so did John Cena. Oh, he just sucked at what he did. Really? Really? That's exactly the mentality they take. And when you do that to somebody, when you publicly humiliate somebody and what they did to Chris his homosexuality and what Taker did because he came out of the closet. You know, Chris was way too ahead of his fucking time. You know, Pat Patterson, everybody knows, anybody who knows anything about the wrestling business knows that Pat Patterson was the queer behind the scenes of the WWF. And he wasn't the only one. There were multiple people behind the scenes this is what I'm talking about. If the WWF wants you, then they will ignore anything. But if they need a reason to get rid of you, then they'll be the first ones to pluck that out of the air and fucking bury you with it. And that's the part that I'm too tender-hearted, man. I that's why I didn't pursue it. That's why I didn't fight over it. That's why for so many years I gave up on releasing my movie, is because it fucking hurts when the WWF comes after you. And if I would have been a lesser human being like Chris and Joni, not lesser in terms of being a human being, less strong in terms of my own ego, I would have fucking stuck a gun in my mouth too. But I'm just got too big of an ego and too much of a tie to the way I was born and raised to take my own life. But I'm here to fucking tell you, I have been down that dark road many a fucking times because of the way the WWF treated me and the way they made me feel.
Well, Rock, I was going to say, I think that, you know, each case is different. Each person is different. Each relationship with the company is different. And to play devil's advocate, as Mike said, I feel like when I think of China, I think of two things that come to my mind first and foremost. Number one, she overestimated her value. It has been reported, and it's been confirmed, too, that she went to them and decided that she was worth what Stone Cold Steve Austin was worth at one point. She wanted his kind of money. Okay, number one, that's not wise. Number two, yes, it had to have absolutely destroyed her, the breakup and everything like that. I get that part, but what I feel bad for her is that she made some really awful friends afterwards and took some really bad advice.
I completely agree with you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think somewhere in the middle lies the truth. And a fucked up situation happened. Triple H fell in love with Stephanie. It's fucked up. And some more fucked up stuff happened. But I do believe that some of it does fall on Joni. I know that's not a popular opinion.
Oh, no, Pharaoh, man, I'm not suggesting Joni wasn't to blame. Oh, my God. But the level at which they assassinate, that's what I'm talking about.
Understood.
The level, and the same goes for Chris, that the level at which they go after, and those are the two obvious ones. There's a lot of other minor players that they did shit to that ended up in my friend Louis Muccioli. He was a guy who just quietly got the fucking shit kicked out of him by the Clique. And when they were done with him, they washed their hands of him and kicked him to the fucking curb. And that's the part that's my point in this, brother.
Well, I think Max, also, not to interrupt you, but your point is valid, right? Triple H has a right to be happy if he didn't want to be with China, but like you said, when she needed help, he didn't care.
Gotta help her.
Didn't care.
And help her.
And this goes to my point. Like, should like a Shawn Michaels, after all the bullshit this guy did to people, you know, now that he's found God, should he be forgiven? Again, it's not up to me to judge if someone should be forgiven or not. But I mean, in your mind, do you think at some point that all these guys should be forgiven for the way they mistreated people along the road?
Well,
real quick, there is a difference between a Hulk Hogan who held people down so he could keep his spot and guys like the Clique. That's including Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn X-Pac Waltman, and Shawn Michaels. And correct me, we're just fans. You're the guy that went out of their way to crush people, to destroy them. And I know that me and Jimmy know that specifically with Mike Mantor, what they did to that guy.
Yeah. Mike was a very close friend of mine. And that's my point right there, man. You've hit it on the head. You know, they don't just let somebody go. They go out of their way to crush because they thought it was funny. They found their own sense. They found it funny so that they could laugh at themselves. And
do you think Vince thought it was funny? Vince had to know about the Clique, obviously. Did Vince think it was funny?
I think Vince treated the Clique like, oh, those boys will be boys. I really think Vince, because
Jesus.
Vince was getting a paycheck from them just like they were getting a paycheck from him. I think Vince turned his back on all of it because Vince fucking, they were making money. They were the Clique, and everything that they were doing was making him money. So he's not gonna fucking rock the boat. But here's the way I look.
Is it people like the Clique that made you walk away and never watch wrestling again?
Yes.
There it is.
Because I spent, you got to understand, Triple H invited me to his fucking house in the Hamptons, and I ate dinner with his parents. When Triple H was fucking terrorizing in the WCW, he was fucking started off as an enhancement guy in the WCW. I was sitting by his side because I was the guy that sat in the enhancement room because I couldn't stand being with the fucking egos in the room next door. I couldn't stand fucking being in the dressing room with all of the fucking Clique because it was miserable. All they did was sit around, and it's like we're talking about. It was how they could laugh at somebody's demise. And I'm one of those people who've always believed, this is just my mantra, you don't have to blow out somebody else's candle to make yours shine. You never have to do that. How much would it, look at what Triple H, look what the WWE could have got out of Joni had they really sat down with Joni and said to her, look, here's what we're willing to offer you. Here's what we're willing to do. I look at Triple H now, and I think the Triple H that is certainly the one he's portraying on Unreal, if he was to be that Triple H to Joni, the loving and caring guy who actually acts like he gives a fuck about somebody's feelings and how hard it is to be in the business and how hard the business really is, I think he would have been much more forgiving of those people, myself included. But instead, when you see my movie, he calls me out to my face. So does Kevin Nash. They all, right to my face in my movie, tell me to shut the fuck up and how, and I'm trying so desperately to try and win these fuckers over. And it wasn't enough that my guitar playing was doing it. And the great thing about I'm not full of shit. When you see the movie, you can decide for yourself whether the crowd's cheering for me or not. They never gave me the chance. And then if it wasn't enough that I pissed the Clique off, then I pissed off Jim Johnston, who was the guy who wrote all the music for the WWF.
What happened there?
I'll leave it to you, but I think the word is jealousy because I wasn't allowed when on all the promos and shit, it's his fucked up guitar playing in place of my own guitar playing and my own ability. It's him playing the guitar for me. That's not who I was. I was the real deal. I could play my guitar. And instead of him sitting down with me and going, wow, Max, that's fucking really cool. Let's take off of what you're doing and develop that fucking character. Instead, he buried me. Everything and the fucking sounds he created were not my sounds. That's why the Man Mountain Rock character was so difficult for me. I was never Man Mountain Rock. I was Maxx Payne. I was the fucking guy. I love Kiss and Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper and T-Rex and all of those fucking dark fuckers from the time I was a kid. And the biggest mistake I made in my life was saying yes to a character I honestly couldn't portray because I didn't believe in it.
Musically, he made you David Prowse. Now, if I can explain this I'm a sci-fi nerd. David Prowse was the man who played Darth Vader. He sits down to watch the premiere of the film, and he said all the lines in the film, and there's James Earl Jones's voice. Yeah, and it's him in the costume. So basically, That's what Johnston did with the music. He replaced the music with his own.
The only time that I ever played my music, and they were going to, had it not been fate, which you'll see in the movie, had it not been fate stepped in, talk about serendipitous. Fate stepped in on the last tour when I went out with the WWF. And the reason I shot this movie is I shot it because I wanted Vince to see that, given the opportunity, because Vince put me in a bunch of really difficult scenarios, not only with Jim Johnston in Madison Square Garden, every place that they could fucking make me fail, they did so. And Vince was the fucking, at that time, he was doing what the clique would tell him to do. And I had so many great ideas. And then, if it's not enough, so I go on this last tour and had Owen Hart not sprayed Louis Muccioli in the eyes with, that's Rad Radford, sprayed him in the eyes with cologne, I would have never got to play in front of a crowd that time. And the only reason I got to play my guitar in front of a crowd that time was because they were going to have, because when Louis got hurt, he couldn't wrestle. So what do they always do? They always do a fucking Royal Rumble. They always do a
Battle Royal.
A battle royal, right? When somebody gets hurt, then they fill in the 20 minutes they need by doing a battle royal as a main event at the end of the night. And everybody's got to stay and everybody's pissed. So we're on this tour. Lewis is out. They come to me to tell me that we're going to do a battle royal tonight. And I looked Tony Gurria right in the eyes and I said, you do realize that you've got the only wrestler you've ever had that can give you 20 minutes without an opponent. And he looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? I said, fuck, dude, let me go out there and play. Let me go out there and do the songs I've got all set up. That's the whole reason it was called the Full Metal Tour. But because of Steve Miller, which is another story all into itself, because of the rock star Steve Miller, that's why I lost my job. Funny enough, it wasn't the clique that cost me my job in the WWF.
It was Steve Miller?
It was the rock star Steve Miller.
Okay.
Yes. And so that's a whole nother story, which I'll gladly tell you. It might take another show to do that because it's a big fucking story and it's a great one. But so I said to Tony Gurria, I said, do you realize this? And he goes, no. And I said, I'll go out and play for 20 minutes every night if you'll give me the chance. And he said, I'll be right back. Went and called Vince on the phone and said, okay, I talked to Vince. Vince said, you're on. So every night we started the show with me playing for 20 minutes. I had 2 songs that I'd prepared, and then I would go out there and I had played a bunch of cover songs that I knew how to play really well, and I knew it would entice the crowd, especially in Europe. I played a bunch of Green Day. I played Metallica. I played Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. I played the German national anthem. You know, I did shit that I knew the European crowds would love. And I was so excited because I did that as to be able to send to Vince and go, see, the crowd really did like this. And I'll never forget walking off the stage with the crowd chanting Zug Abend. I don't know if you know what Germans do and the German crowd does, but when they love you and they want you to keep their way of giving you an encore is they chant Zug Abend, Zug Abend, Zug Abend, which means do it again. Mm. And I would walk off the stage every night with them chanting that. And I walked by Kevin Nash and they're chanting Zug Abend in the first match after which is now not a match. It's me playing the guitar. Here they are chanting for me and want me to go back. And I walked by Kevin Nash and looked at him like, well, what do you think? And he looked down at me and goes, yeah, that shit's never going to work. I knew right then. I went, wow, you're dead in the water, Max. That's it. You're done. And tough. When I left Europe that time, I never heard from the WWF again, except for them to give the guitar back that I paid for, designed and had made. And Vince wanted it back, and I basically hung up on him, and I sold it to somebody else. But I'm positive Vince has it. I know that I heard a story. He sent the Brooklyn Brawler to someplace in Las Vegas. And I guarantee it's like Rosebud from fucking Citizen Kane. It's sitting in the bowels of fucking WWF because no one can ever play it. No one can ever see it.
Wow.
It's a fucking WWF logo. No one can ever fucking see that guitar. So it can't ever be shown publicly by the WWF for sure not. But Vince had to have that guitar back. But I'm positive he figured out how to find it and buy it and bought it back. And it's sitting in the coffers at Titan Sports someplace in the basement.
Max, probably we started off hot, but it's going to be probably a very difficult question. And, you know, we could tread lightly on it. But considering what happened with the Clique, when you hear about the demise of a Scott Hall or the passing of a Kevin Nash's son, what is your emotion? Is your emotion like, I don't want to say good, or is it like, I don't know. What is your emotion?
Well, first of all, I'm going to leave it what I'm about to say at this. I believe in the greatest forgiver that ever lived. And I have no to take any animosity to someone losing their son would be immoral beyond morality. And I can't even imagine the pain that Kevin Nash is suffering in his life right now. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemies. I have nothing but compassion and understanding for Kevin because I have children too. And to lose a son to suicide, I can't even begin to understand how that must feel. And in terms of Scott Hall, Scott was who he was, and I knew who he was from the beginning, and I forgive him. I have no animosity towards the Clique. They are what they are. They did what they did, and there was no place in them for me. And I was foolish enough to think that the things that I brought to the table would shine hard enough that they would give me an opportunity. They didn't give me an opportunity. They wasted no time in doing everything they could to bury me. And for that, I had what else? That's where my PTSD comes from. But if I'm truly the man that I say I am, then I forgive them, because the only way I can get up and walk around every day and look at the guy in the mirror is to go, you know what? I don't, first of all, to carry that kind of shit around, that's carrying shit in your pockets of a magnitude that I realized in my life. I have this philosophy that I've developed called killing Mr. Hyde. And I can't imagine carrying that kind of, if I carried that kind, I would have stuck a gun in my mouth.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that causes you to stick a gun in your mouth, because the only way to rationally overcome that is to forgive them so that I can move on. And I never asked them for another job. They never reached out to me in any way, shape, or form, and they never will. And it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't matter. But you know what? From my standpoint, I forgive them. And for Kevin Nash, I wish him nothing but blessings and prayers, because I can't imagine what that poor fucker's going through. Kevin, deep down in his heart, is a good guy. He is the Clique. He is the personification of the Clique and what's happened to that. And they can say what they want to about me, because they've said plenty of nasty shit about me. But I'm not going to just pile on and say nasty shit about them. I don't have to. Like I said, the videotape in the end I'll let everybody else be the judge when the videotape finally comes out, and you can decide for yourself what they thought of me on your own. And if I'm full of shit, well, then I'll be the first one to go, I'm full of shit.
Let me ask you this. We opened the show with asking you, hey, you were in the locker room when these women were being abused. How did you feel about it? And you answered brilliantly. Now I'll ask you this. I know you don't know what's in their minds or what's in their souls. Rest in peace, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple, X-Pac, and Kevin Nash. Do you think when they lay down at night, they say, boy, I really did mistreat a lot of people. I hope the Lord forgives me?
You know what? By me forgiving them, that relieves me of that burden. And that's the beauty of forgiveness, is by forgiving them, that whole philosophy that lies in, it's service, it's fucking tennis, and it's service. The ball's in their court at that point. I have forgiven them for, and they would say we didn't do nothing wrong to Daryl. He's a fucking talentless piece of shit. So that would be their comeback, and I've already prepared myself for that kind of banter by forgiving them and knowing full well that's how they would respond to me. I've prepared myself my whole life for that, and once the movie comes out, it will be on like Donkey Kong.
Well, here's a tough question for you then, and I've been thinking about this because you know how much we respect you. Part of my concern is, when does the movie start to become irrelevant, right? Let's be honest. We're at a point now where people don't even know who Hulk Hogan is at this point, right? And, when does, people probably at some point going to forget who Scott Hall is. And then, I guess the point is, aren't you in fear of this taking so long on becoming irrelevant?
If it does, then so be it. Yeah. Come see, come saw. I think the reason it won't become irrelevant, Monty, is because I did something 30 years ago and had the courage to do something 30 years ago that it's taken them till now to expose kayfabe and actually talk about behind the scenes things that I did 30 years ago. And I think, I had a guy say to me once, the 3 R's that make video that hasn't been seen relevant and makes it interesting to people: rare, raw, and real. And the movie that I shot is all of those things. And the reason it is, and I'll tell you why it won't be irrelevant for a while, is because so many of the family members are still alive of the beautiful people like Owen Hart. Owen Hart is so fucking wonderful in this movie. And nobody's ever seen this side of Owen like shows up in this movie. The same goes for Yokozuna. The same goes for Bam Bam. The same goes for Louis Muccioli. There's Scott, is in this movie. Kevin's in this movie. All of Triple H, all these folks that are in this movie.
Let me ask you this question, because I don't know shit about shit, but being that they're in this movie and you were filming it, did you have to get releases from them?
I got the release from the guy that mattered. I got it from Vince.
Beautiful.
Vince is the one. It wouldn't have happened. That's the reason I say what I say, because the release comes from Vince. Vince is the one that gave me the permission to do it. He's the one that said, Max, shoot the videotape. If he wouldn't have said it, it wouldn't have happened. Right. That's all that fucking matters, because everybody that's in the movie is part of the movie knowing full well what they're doing. In fact, Owen even talks about it openly. Yeah, Max is shooting a behind the scenes documentary. Vince said yes, and blah, blah, blah. It's amazing. You'll see for yourself what that's all there. And I'm not doing this. The other side of that is, Monty, I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this to show something that, if somebody makes money from it, well, then I'm happy for them. But that's one of the things I really vowed on this. My goal isn't to fucking make $1 gazillion. My goal is to show something that the world has never seen. It's raw, real, and rare. And it's so amazing that somebody had the opportunity to go shoot that.
Well, let's get both out of it, Max. You know what? I appreciate that, but let's get you some money out of it, because you deserve it. I mean,
I don't want it. I mean it. I'm not interested.
You better take it. If it comes your way, you better take it. What are you talking about?
You know what? Well, here's the funny part. The way the money will come my way is people are going to want me to come and do fucking interviews in Europe and Japan. Right. And, that's the part where if I get invited to do those things, I'll do it. And on top of that, there's other ways. One of the things I'm really proud of is that I wrote the soundtrack for this movie before I shot the movie. I bought an Elise's Dream studio. That's where the whole Steve Miller thing comes into play. I bought this Elise's Dream studio and taught myself how to be an audio engineer, and recorded an entire album with Brian James, Road Dogg, as the lead singer. One of the things
Wow.
Brian James has never told anybody publicly is the reason he got his job in New York. Ask him, anybody ever ask him, how did you get your job? Nobody's ever asked him that. And if they have, and he hasn't said, because Maxx Payne took me to New York with him and we sang 3 songs in front of Vince McMahon. That's how Brian James got his job in the WWF. I took him to New York with me. I asked after Rick Rude got me there, I went to New York one time. Vince said, what do you want to do next? I said, you need to see Brian. Fly Brian in and let me show you how talented Brian is. And the rest of the story falls apart from there. But Brian James, I took him to New York with me, and he fucking sat in front of Vince McMahon with me and a guitar I borrowed from oh my God, I can't believe I forgot his name. The brothers that ran Chattanooga, that run Tennessee.
The Jarrett's, Jeff
no,
Jarrett?
No. Oh my God. He's going to fucking be mad as shit at me. Anyway,
he's Fuller's? I don't know.
Yeah, the Fullers, Robert
Okay.
Fuller.
Yeah.
Robert Fuller had a fucking D35 Martin that his father had given him, a 1963 D45 Martin, and it was fucking badass. In fact, I recorded my album. Robert let me borrow it, and I used it to record my album with in the studio that I built in Jonesboro, Georgia, with Nick Patrick, Brian James, my my bass player friend, his name was Mike Clare, and my drummer friend, who is now in a band that is a Led Zeppelin tribute band called No Quarter. His name's Nathan Carroll. I flew all these guys to Atlanta, and we spent 4 months recording an album in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm familiar with No Quarter. They're excellent, by the way. Figured I'd throw that in.
Fucking, he's, just to say that he's in a Led Zeppelin cover band tells you what kind of a drummer he is. I grew up with Nathan, and Nathan started, he and I became friends when I was in 3rd grade, and we've been friends ever since. We still are really good friends. No Quarters plays all over the world right now. They're going to Lisbon, Portugal here in the not too distant future. But Nathan's a hell of a drummer. But I brought all these, I assembled with my own money. I assembled all these musicians in Atlanta. It was supposed to originally be Brad was going to be the lead singer. And the minute I signed the contract with Brad, he disappeared. And Brian called me out of the blue and said, hey, I want to meet you. I heard that my brother abandoned you and you need a lead singer. And I was pulling my hair out because I'm like, now what am I going to do? And Brian showed up. And so I recorded the album with Brian, and then I got fired from the WCW. Rude came over to my house, and in 5 minutes, Rude goes, "These motherfuckers fired you, Max?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Hold on," and he took my landline, got on the fucking phone, and called Titan Sports, and I was on the phone with Vince McMahon in 5 minutes.
Why'd they fire you, Max?
Because of the Nasty Boys. And Hogan.
Can you tell the story?
Hogan was getting ready to come there. The Nasty Boys, after Knobs blamed me for hurting his shoulder, Knobs and Sags set forth to destroy me as well. Another group of people, because I had the audacity to stand up for myself. And I stood up for myself to Brian, and he got hurt in the process because he didn't trust me. And after that was over, he went out of his way to bury me to everybody. And those that mattered to them were the Clique, and the Clique mattered. And so Eric Bischoff pulled me aside and blamed me. And I said, "Eric, there comes a point in your life as a wrestler that you got to say no." And I said no. And Brian made the decision not to trust me. And I told him, either you trust me or you're going to get hurt. And he got hurt, not because I did it to him on purpose, but because he made his own stupid fucking mistake. Had he trusted me in the throw, he would have just flown out of the ring and been completely protected. Instead, he decided to take the bump himself. And if you go on to the Pain Lair on YouTube, my YouTube channel, you can watch it. I talk about it. I show it over and over again so that you can see what I'm telling you is the truth. Brian hurt himself. I didn't hurt Brian.
Speaking of Knobs, what's your thoughts on GoFundMes and wrestlers? That seems to be the in thing now. for the multimillionaires that no longer have any money and now want to still eat the fans up for their cash. What are your thoughts?
Again, Monty, you know what, man? I have to, once again, I got to go back to the greatest forgiver, man. Never judge somebody else till you've walked in their shoes. And I, no matter what I just said, it sounds like I may have animosity towards Knobs and Sags. I don't. I love them both dearly. I had some really amazing fucking times with Knobs and Sags. They're the ones that carry that animosity around. I've forgiven them. I don't carry any animosity towards them at all. I love them both dearly. I learned a ton from working with them. I give them that credit. If they choose to be the ones to talk shit about me, well, then they're the ones that are going to have to deal with that kind of karma all on their own. I don't have to deal with that. At that point, I've forgiven you and moved on. If that's what you want to do, well, then that's going to have to be your own price to pay, not mine.
This is why you're a good guy, man. You're going to heaven. I got to get my shit together, Jimmy. I ain't going to make it, dude.
What'd you say? I got to turn down the oven in here. It's hot.
All right, man. I want to be respectful of your time. First of all, you are quite the gentleman. You know what big fans we are of you and as a human being. Forget the wrestler portion. It doesn't, compare to what you are as a human being. But I got to ask you now, Jimmy, just so you're aware, and it's perfectly fine because this is why this country is so great. Max leans to the left a little bit. We lean to the right a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. We clearly discuss our things, but I want to hear your thoughts, Max, on the Big Bad Bunny halftime show and then the alternative halftime show with Kid Rock. What are your thoughts about this whole thing?
You know what's great? And I'll make it this simple. To me, see, this is where I stand. I watched it and I didn't like it, but that has nothing to do with political correctness. It has to do with, I just didn't think it was, for me, wasn't my kind of music and my kind of fun. I just didn't enjoy it because, I like the classic old rock shit they were doing, having bands like Aerosmith and Bryan Adams. And, how do you top the performance by Prince being on there? And, when I think of a NFL halftime show, I think of a band that's raucous and is going to have fun, and we're all going to be able to sing along to their tunes. And if you can't, at least you know what they are, who they are, and where they come from. I love the fact, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if there's, I heard a guy talking about this just yesterday, that the NFL should be worried. Yeah, they should be, because you know what happened? Everybody that didn't like Bad Bunny, they changed the fucking channel. And that's what they should be worried about. If you got people that are there to watch the two greatest football teams in the world play, and you got 135 million watching your football game, the last thing you want them to do is change the channel in the middle of the time when everybody's paying the most money to watch your fucking production. So to me, the greatest thing in the world that could happen is people having the opportunity to go click and change the channel. If you don't like something, then fucking turn it off. That's exactly the way I feel about it. If it doesn't matter whether you're on the right or you're on the left. If something is pissing you off and you don't like it, then fucking turn it off.
Amen.
All right, Jimmy. Pharaoh's final question. We're going to let Max go. Max, again, you are the man. It's an honor having you on our show yet again.
I love being on your show. I'll do it anytime. I'd love to tell you the Steve Miller story, but that's going to take some fucking time. So
we'll get you back on because we want to hear it. Dude, I gotta tell you, your honesty, and these were not softball questions, right? Your honesty, unbelievable and incredible. Again, you deserve everything that's coming your way, man. And it's going to come.
You know what? You know something, Monty and Pharaoh? I know I mean this, man. The truth will set you free. And you know what's great about telling the truth about something? I don't have to fucking try to remember whether the story's right or not. It just is, because it's the truth. you know. And whenever I tell a story, I don't have to embellish it because it happened to me, or I wouldn't be telling it, because I'm going to tell it the same way the next time I tell that story, because that's who I am. And to me, that's the most powerful thing. That's when you know. I mean, you've said it. We all love to be talking to somebody who you don't have to question whether they're legit or not. You just know it by the sheer presence they bring to the table. And I've always wanted to be that guy. And I've always believed that the only way I can do that is by telling the truth about who I am and what I am. I know my own weaknesses. I've fucked up a lot. And if anybody that I've heard in the business, I mean this, I am sorry. I will apologize to your face, because that's not who I want to be at my core level. But telling the truth and just being who I am, that's what I am. That's who I'm all about. And that's all I've ever wanted to be.
Jimmy Pharaoh's final question, big guy. And then send
All
us
right.
out, okay?
I'll do my best. Well, I mean, you've described how the clique was. You've described how the Nasty Boys were. I can only go by my own vibes when I meet people to get a feel of them. Sometimes you only see a person once in your life, but you still get a memory and a feel of somebody when you meet them, their vibe, their aura, whatever it may be. Scott Hall, we met, and I could feel with Scott Hall the rock star thing. Hey, I'm Scott Hall. You could like feel it coming off of him. Nice man. He was very nice to me. I know that for sure. But you could feel that though. He was playing the persona to a degree. I cannot be sure. Um, some of these other guys, the same thing. They've got that persona. When I met Hulk Hogan, sure, I was going, whoa, it's the Hulkster. I grew up watching the Hulkster. It's Hogan. He did not act like I'm Hulk Hogan. He acted the most humble, real person. And I'm fairly confident when I say that I don't believe that Hulk Hogan carried himself the way the Clique did, as you described, or the way the Nasty Boys did, as you described. What would you say? Who was Hulk Hogan to you now that the most important, whether you like him or hate him, like you were talking about the left or the right, the most important wrestler who ever look, the business wouldn't be where it is without him. Who was Hulk Hogan to you?
That's fucking loaded right there, brother. Because I have to be honest again. And let me tell you the story this way. There was a guy that was really important in the NFL by the name of Gene Upshaw.
Mm-hmm.
He was the representative of the Players Union when he actually created the NFL the way it stands today, because he was the first players rep. And he was the guy who established a union to protect guys, not from the owners, but to protect guys from themselves. And I was telling somebody, a mutual acquaintance, I won't use his name, but he was telling me this story about Jesse Ventura had gotten on an elevator. And I worshiped Gene Upshaw. I read all of what the commandments was he was trying to get out of, that he wanted out of the NFL. When they struck, and what he was trying to accomplish. And it was all to protect the boys. It really was to protect the boys from themselves. It was, yes, it was disguised as a union to protect the boys from the owners. But in the end, it was to give something the boys had never had, which was a union that looked after them first and foremost. Gene Upshaw cared about the players of the NFL. And I know Jesse pretty well. Jesse was never anything but kind and good to me. When I played the guitar the first time and I played the national anthem in Asheville, Jesse asked me to play some Jimi Hendrix at the end of the national anthem, and I did. And he popped and he loved it. And from that point forward, he and I we always got along really well, because I played Purple Haze after the national anthem. And he was telling a story. I guess I heard this from somebody else that he got on an elevator in a hotel, one of the big hotel elevators in New York, and when he got on the elevator, the next stop, the doors opened, and Gene Upshaw and all of his entourage got on the elevator and did what you normally do in an elevator. The doors shut. Everybody looked forward. Nobody said a word. The elevator went to where it was going, probably the lobby, and everybody was getting ready to get off. And Gene Upshaw turned to Jesse Ventura and he said one thing to him. He said, "You boys need a union." And Jesse talks about the union and how important it was for, he saw the need for a union in the wrestling business. And this is another reason that I'm probably blackballed a little bit in the wrestling business because of this as well, because I grew up in a steel town. The town I grew up in, Utah, was a western extension of United States Steel. And my father worked there for 33 years. And so I grew up in a steel mill town. My dad was part of the steelmakers union. And of course, that's why, when he was talking about leaning right or left, I leaned left because my parents were part of a union. And Jesse went to all the boys. He went to Hogan and he said, "Let's go to Vince right now and let's start a union."
Yeah, that's been well documented. Hogan
Right?
was like, no, I don't think so.
No, yeah. Well, what happened, the way Jesse tells the story, is everybody went, "Yeah, I'm going with you." And Hogan said, "Sounds great. Let's go to Vince's." And he said he fucking got to the door and fucking went, "Okay, boys, let's do this." And he turned around, looked, and there was nobody behind him. And regardless of whether that's a metaphor of what actually happened, that's what actually happened. Like you said,
Right.
It's well documented that everybody went, "Fuck you, we ain't doing a union."
Right.
And then Hogan went on to Arsenio Hall in the middle of the scandal. And you know what scandal I'm talking about.
Sure.
And he lied to all the little Hulksters about saying his prayers and eating his vitamins and doing anabolic steroids. And it broke my fucking heart. That was a moment when Hogan could have changed the destiny of so many things. And for Hogan, that's, I guess, what always broke my heart, was that Terry could have really had an impact for a lot of people outside of himself. But, and I give this to Terry, nobody expects you to do that. I was just always disappointed that the guy who said, "Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and do what's right," in the moment when, to me, the things that seemed to be right, he made his own decisions on how to handle those things. And that always broke my heart, brother. And that's the part of Hogan that always left a bitter taste in my mouth. And from that moment forward, and this is coming from a guy, okay? I built the cage for Hogan and Bundy at WrestleMania 2 in Los Angeles. I don't know if you know that, but I built.
That's Mike's favorite cage. He was at WrestleMania 2. He loves the blue cage. Go
that
on.
fucking blue cage, man. And Red Bastien, I showed him what we were going to do, and it was my idea to build that cage the way we built it. And you know how we did it, and did it fast? We used motorcycle straps. Right. So I could fucking put the thing together, and they actually came, Pat Patterson and Red and all of the fucking WWF brass came and watched me test. They brought guys and watched me test it in a fucking boneyard in downtown Los Angeles. And I proved to Pat Patterson that I could build that fucking cage in 2 minutes if he gave me the right personnel. And after that fucking match that night, Pat Patterson handed me and my nephew a $500 bonus. So watching Hogan and Bundy in the cage that fucking night and feeling the fucking roar of the crowd in the sports arena that night, dude, it changed my fucking life forever. That was the moment I said,
Well,
"Oh fuck,
That's
yes."
well, that's a testament, whether you meant to, it to be or not. At the end of the day, the Hogan influenced everybody,
He was
one
Hogan. He
one
was
way or the
fucking
other.
Hogan.
Max, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be checking in with you. Hopefully, you come on again soon in the near
I'll
future. I
come on
trust.
whenever you guys need me. Somebody cancels and you need a fucking guest, you give me a call. I love you both, man, and I fucking come on your show and do your show with you both anytime, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
God bless you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right,
Thanks, man.
Jimmy, send
Later,
us
bro.
out, brother.
You've been watching Monte the Pharaoh with Maxx Payne, and until next time, which is shortly. Later.
Couple things I want to cover, Jimmy.
Yeah.
500 level has now improved on the M&P code. Now go to MP30 for 30% off. Jimmy, I got to tell you something, right? I was at the beach again, 500 level. If you guys haven't looked at the shirts, right, go to the website. It's incredible. And I got to be honest, right? So it was a little chilly today. I brought the dogs to the beach. I was off work for the Jewish holidays,
today.
right?
It's cold.
It wasn't cold,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I have from 500 level, I have a Roman Reigns sweatshirt. Now, usually sweatshirts are not always the nicest fabric, unless I'm into really nice fabric because I just don't like things up against my skin. So
Yeah.
usually I'll get thinner type of shirts, but this is a heavy sweatshirt. The fabric, unbelievable. And you're going to get a deal at 30% off, Jimmy. I mean, my God, it's a no-brainer, guys. I am telling you, once you get one shirt from them, you'll get 50. I guarantee it. And they've got all the sports. Yeah, dude, tell me what you think of it, Jimmy.
They're so comfortable. I got to get a long sleeve now. I'm telling you, I got to, because it was chilly today, especially for a guy who's been in Panama City Beach the last 2 years. It was chilly today, and I love the material. It's so silky. Is that the right word for it? I don't know.
No, absolutely, absolutely, dude.
It's so comfortable. So yeah, I got to get myself some leveled long sleeves. That's for sure. 30%.
And again,
off,
it doesn't. They got plenty of wrestling stuff. They got baseball stuff. They've got football. They got everything, dude. MMA. They got it all, man. And I'm telling you, it's very high quality. Again, 500 level code MP30, 30% off. So if a T-shirt costs you $20, what's 30% off on $20, dude?
It's enough. 10 plus another 20% tacked on top. Not much. It's a steal. It's a steal.
I agree. I want to remind everybody too, the Monte and the Pharaoh show, hit the QR code, be willing to check out our shows on YouTube, where we got almost 24,000 subscribers. Go to our Facebook page where we're approaching 27,000 subscribers. And again, if you feel like donating to the show, please go to the Monte and the Pharaoh webpage, hit donate. Helps us bring in more guests. Trying to entertain Jim. We've got the big event coming up, so a lot of good stuff happening right now.